Have a seat.
I think it was here this time, so I think it must be moving. You see from
May I please invite everyone to please stand for our Philippine National Anthem.
Sabay-sabay po nating awitin ang ating pambansang awit.
Bayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alab ng puso, sa dilim mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manluluping, di ka pasisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mo'y bukaw. May dilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidiling. Lupa ng araw ng wapatid pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na may mga api ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please remain standing for the invocation. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we gather in this hall tonight to welcome and listen to the message of our officials from Manila, we ask for your blessing and grace so that this forum would be productive and successful. May you continue to bless each and every one of us as we perform our respective duties and responsibilities. Guide and inspire us as we work, whether in the Philippines, Australia, or in other countries, in the service of our country and the Filipino people. Extend your protective hand, O God, over all of us present here, and help us to be mindful always that we are but doing your will. Amen. Please be seated.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to the Filipino community leaders present, our media representatives, to our tourism attaché Consuelo Jones, Special Representative Michelle Sanchez, Dr. Ken Vine, Senior Education Advisor OSAID Manila, who accompanied the delegation from Manila and arrived with them this morning. And we have also somewhere in the hall Don Joseph Medrana of the Coffee International Development, Don. And of course to our guests in here in the hall who are from Manila, a very warm welcome to all of you. I think with our current list, we have 55 representatives from the various associations as well as media groups who are with us tonight. The farthest to travel, of course, is whenever Ninita Weeks is around, she's always the winner. Ninita from Bathurst, which is a 3-hour drive from the city, and followed by our friends from Wollongong. Yes. And of course, this is not to say that we are not equally as appreciative of all those who come from the suburbs and other places in New South Wales to join us. I know that it is a work day, a weekday, tomorrow as well, so I thank you very much for taking the time to participate in this forum. It is an honor for the consulate to host this forum with the members of the Philippine delegation, comprising officials from the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, and the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority of the Philippines. May I now introduce the members of the Philippine delegation. We have Ms. Lotus Postrado. Lotus. Yes, she's the Planning Assistant Chief, Office of Planning Service, Department of Education, and we have been, the consulate has been coordinating with her on this visit. And of course, we have Assistant Secretary Jesus Mateo of the Department of Education. And we have the Deputy Director General for Field Operations of TESDA, the Honorable Chodoro Pascua, one of our panelists in front. And the Chairperson of CHED, the Honorable Dr. Patricia Licuanan. And of course, the head of the delegation, no other than our Secretary of Education, the Honorable Brother Armin Luistro. Indeed, it is a rare opportunity to be in a meeting where high-level officials of all three Philippine agencies on education are present. So I hope that you will take the most of their presence, make the most of their presence here tonight as resource persons on anything concerning education in the Philippines. To start the forum proper, may I now call on TESDA Deputy Director General Pascua, who has been very much involved in the pursuit of TESDA's goal to provide quality technical vocational education and training to students, graduates, and workers, including the overseas Filipino workers, to deliver his remarks.
Good afternoon to everyone. In behalf of our Director General, Secretary Joel Villanueva, please accept our deepest gratitude for this opportunity to be here. We look forward to a very pleasant stay, more because we would like to learn, we would like to observe, we would like to ask. Because this is a very exciting and, shall we say, very propitious time. Let me just say that in the way that we perceive what's happening right now in our department as well as in the country today, there's an understanding, greater understanding of what time means. In Greek, time has three significance. First, there's the idea of chronos, or that's where you get the time chronology or your watch, the chronograph. It's in a state, in a country, there may be 4 seasons. In the Philippines, we only have 2. 3. You must be living in some other place. Election season. And so, that's the concept of chronos, or timing. There is the other idea of Greek understanding of the second one, which can best be exemplified, kairos, by the understanding of a period of time. For example, a period of pregnancy. I'm married to a OB-GYN. That's why, not that I'm an expert in it, though I was there beside my wife when she delivered by a cesarean section, the first time of which I almost fainted. So that's the idea of, the Greeks call it kairos. For a 9-month period, a woman must bear a child. So it's a period. The third meaning is plerou, the understanding of which that there is an exact time that when it comes and nobody else can prevent it. Similarly, in a pregnancy, when it's about time to give birth, nobody can prevent that. No medicine, no election, not even my being here. If my wife will tell me I am already giving birth, that's why you have so many films, movies made regarding husband trying to make the time that the wife will give birth. There is that timing. So Chronos, Kairos, and that event, when the event actually occurs, no one else can prevent it. I think the Philippines, your country, is in that time today. Developments of certain things, particularly now in education. Brother Armin, I can say that, particularly in the spearheading of K-12, I would understand that it is really time already, such that even the higher education sector and us in the TVET sector view it also as a timing to change, timing to accept certain things. And more importantly now, when we look at it, we cannot accept things that occur from what we used to know. People say, well, we were raised this way, well, we learned it this way. This is the way that it should be. No. Nowadays, we have to keep our minds open. We have to be very versatile. We have to be very resilient on the changes that we must be able to accept, adapt, and incorporate. There is not one instance that we will say this is the foolproof and exact way that it should be done. There are a lot of things that we can adapt, and we have to adapt it now. And as I always say when I go around the country, in a matter of a pier, a vessel, when the boat is there, there is time, a kairos time to join the boat. But when it is time for the boat to leave, when it blows its horns, that is the pleru. That is the last time you can board the vessel. Otherwise, it will leave without you. That's where we are right now. And I am very pleased that you are here. Perhaps if there will be time later on for interaction, we would be very willing to listen to you and to address. If it's a concern or an inquiry, we would have the best time that we could have to exchange it with you. So in behalf of Secretary Villanueva, our Director General, please accept our greatest regard to our Filipinos, not in exile, but who are found in many areas of the world today. One last thing, somebody was asking me in a different mixed spirit, has been telling, Tesda, you know, the only thing that you do is export our people. So I let them in this way. I tell them, don't you know of the grand conspiracy? What's the grand conspiracy? We are here to occupy the world. Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat, and have a nice and blessed afternoon.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director General Pasqua. Our next speaker is a leader in the fields of social psychology, education, and women's rights. She has extensive accomplishments in these areas, not only in the Philippines, but also in the international arena. Please join me in welcoming the chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education, Dr. Patricia Licuano.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think I'll follow along the theme of Assistant DG Teddy on change. And before I won't go into the other stuff and about time and all that profound things. But at any rate, let me take off from what he talked about on change. When I first accepted this position to be in President Aquino's cabinet, my children asked me really quite seriously, Mom, why the change of heart, you know? Because they knew very well that off and on in the past, whenever the possibility came up, I would always tell them, kids, if ever I sound as if I'm serious about joining government, you can shoot me. And my son said, No, ma'am, but we'll lock you up. So when that announcement came, and I had obviously, I didn't think too long. I said yes. They asked me why, and it was a legitimate question. So my answer was, I truly believed with all my heart that change was possible, was still possible for the country, and I really wanted to be part of that. And I had been in academia, in education all my life. In the presence of Brother Armin, I say I spent 30 years at the Ateneo, the best years of my professional life. Then I became president of Miriam College, which used to be Maryknoll. And then now I am in government. And I can see while we could do so much in the private sector, there is so much you can do in government. And that's exactly what challenges me now, what keeps me going. And when people ask me, are you enjoying your job? I think I might not have chosen enjoy, but it truly is challenging. So let me just give you a few of the things that we're working on, what we have done over the past year or so. Essentially, if I would identify the key result areas in higher education, it would be, first, what I would call rationalization. Now, what do we mean by this? The higher education sector, the higher education landscape in the Philippines is really quite chaotic. Even on with the best view, it is quite chaotic. Over 2,000 higher education institutions. That's an awful lot. 110 state colleges and universities. So the proliferation of these is something that, in a way, has led to maybe the deterioration in quality. So that's the second basic challenge, that the quality of Philippine education is not what it used to be. There are still pockets of excellence where we're extremely competitive, but there is truly a big sea of mediocrity which we have to deal with. So that's the second key result area, improving quality and standards. The third is expanding access to quality higher education. State colleges and universities are created precisely to give access to the poor. But if it's not access to quality education, then it's not access at all. So that's another challenge that we have, is truly improving the state system so that the poor Filipinos will have access to top quality education. So there is always the issue of funding and financing of Philippine education, particularly higher education. Brother Armin's budget is much higher than Chen's. but rightly so, as I often tell the congressmen who really want to pick a fight. What? Are you satisfied with your budget? Look at the basic ed. Is the Aquino government not interested in higher ed? We have to say that everything starts with basic, and that's partly also why I'm here as a support for the K-12 program. The other two key result areas have to do with reform from inside the system. We have to have transparency and accountability. This is the Daang Matuwid. And also we want to the organization, the higher education sector, the SUCs, as well as CHED, to grow, the organizational development, to improve in its operations and to be the most effective organization. So that's what we're working on. What are some of the things we are doing? Well, essentially, when we say there's so many higher education institutions, we're amalgamating the state systems. So we're saying if there are several state institutions in one area, why don't you become a regional university system so that we are dealing with less units and our money can go a longer way. Essentially, also we are saying, look, you've expanded way beyond your mandates. Why are schools that started out as agricultural institutions, normal schools, why are you offering HRM, criminology, tourism, all of these other things. Well, we've got to rationalize that too and say these are very important areas, and they're under subscribed. You know, what would another major in hotel and restaurant management really do for the country? And so we have to, it's not going to be easy because those are the popular courses, but we say maybe the state system has to focus on the areas that are less popular. So that kind of streamlining is something that that we are also doing. Unfortunately, we also have to be very strict about standards, and so when you have 400 nursing schools, at least half of them have to go, right? What are you going to do with 400 nursing schools, particularly now that the market is down? And even before that, the quality was suffering. So I guess I'm lucky that the market has gone down. Otherwise, I'd have tremendous lawsuits, no? And they've been threatening that still, but I know that they would not be as aggressive because they realize, no, that the bubble has burst. We have to be also very strict about maritime. That is one of our flagship areas, and we cannot compromise on quality. So there are reforms like that that we are working on. So when they ask me how I'm enjoying my job, I say, well, there are good days and there are bad days, but I think for the most part, that is the most challenging, right, Brother Armin? That essentially the thing about working with government, and we were discussing that earlier, Consuelo, right? When you work with government, there is a tremendous potential for impact. It can be awfully frustrating, it's so bureaucratic, and you don't know when you're going to be making mistakes or not, and but like I say, it's a tremendous challenge. We are here mainly because one of the major reforms that we're working on at the moment is expanding our basic education system. We are the last country in the world, I think, the second to the last, with only 10 years in our basic ed system. And so the time has come, no? The time has come for us to add those 2 extra years. It's not popular, no? It's very controversial. The idea is, what, you know, it's so much, you're going to add to the expenses of families, and you have so many problems with the 10 years. You will add 2 more years. Where are you going to get the teachers? Where are you going to get the classrooms? But we know, no, we are definitely clear that it has to be done, and that ultimately it is better for the country. No? The transition is a bit scary, but that's why we're here. It really is going to be a cooperation among the 3 agencies. You know, we used to be one, and now they split us up, and that's a bit strange. And people keep threatening to put us back together again if we don't behave. But I think the Philippine educational sector is so huge that it can't really be handled by one agency, because well, we know what a huge population we've got. Just the stuff that Brother Armin has to deal with, how can he take on what I have to deal with, which is really 2,000 higher education institutions, which is quite unusual because we have a very large private sector, which is not very common in other countries. They're just discovering private education now. We've had it for ages. It predated our public education system. So at any rate, as I was saying, we're working together, and we promise that your educational system in the Philippines will be something that you can be proud of, and that will continue, because it still does. It still produces excellent graduates. It will continue to do so, and more. So thank you for being here, and I will be happy to have to continue this dialogue later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Licuanan. Now it is my honor to introduce our guest of honor. He has spent most of his life as an educator and in the service of the poor. He was called to serve the country under the administration of President Benigno Aquino III, and as Secretary of Education is an example of selflessness and service in public administration. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you Brother Armin Luistro.
Maraming salamat po. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Unlike Deputy Director General Ted, I don't have a wife to worry about whether she's about to give birth or not. So when I was asked whether by the President to serve in the cabinet, I did not have to ask permission from my wife. And unlike Chairman Licuanan, I don't have children, so I didn't have to ask permission from my children either. But my big problem was I have this bunch of all these brothers whom I had to struggle with because it was definitely a very difficult decision, not only for myself but for my religious community. But like Chairman Licuanan, the only reason why I thought I was bold enough to accept the challenge was because I've been a very loud critic of the past administration. It's not about personalities. It's about what I felt public officials must give to the people. And when I was asked, I thought I did not have the heart to look at my face in the mirror and say, well, my convictions only go up to where I could raise my voice. But when it's about taking the task and doing it myself, I have to give these 101 excuses. So I'm here hoping that our joint efforts will be able to redound to the benefit of our young people. The face of Jose Rizal, we're celebrating his 150th birth year, reminds me that in history, the best of our people are those who have been educated, the Ilustrados who were enlightened and came back to the country and did what they felt in their heart would reform the nation. And I think that's what education does. Education ultimately is not about investing in one person. It's about investing in the whole nation. Because a well-educated person will always bring back the best, not for himself or herself, but for the nation. Coming here to the embassy, one of the first things I noticed was that big poster of Boracay. And there are so many beautiful things about the country. But I think you will agree with me that there is nothing so beautiful as our people. And everyone who has encountered Filipinos will always say that more than the natural beauty of the country, our real resource is people. But Filipinos also are very much challenged because, like the state of universities and colleges, we are also good Filipinos. That every time we have an idea, we start our own institution or our own association. And because we're so good, we also tend to compete with each other. And we almost like mirror the archipelago. And we want to be our own little islands rather than see ourselves as connected as one nation. And I think that's partly our challenge. To see that very good, well-meaning people, gifted in our individual selves, hopefully can create a miracle by coming together and say, we're one. We'll do this together. I think one of the miracles in education is that we're able to bring together my department, the Commission on Higher Education, and TESDA, and we're happy working together because we know we cannot be islands if we want to make any real reform in education. The reform on basic education, which is under that whole umbrella of looking at kinder education all the way to, we're adding senior high school, that brings in the competencies that we have also identified as important for industry, and that's why we're working very closely with TESDA on that, and which will allow all of our graduates not only to start a family responsibly, be prepared for work without having to go to college necessarily, but at the same time be ready to move into college if they so wish. And essentially that's the K-12 program that where we want to bring Philippine education. I've been told that in New South Wales there are around 80,000 Filipinos that we're trying to document. But I'd like to believe that the Filipinos who are here continue to be very much part of where the country is and where it will go. And my little presentation this evening is to engage you, is to request you to continue to consider that you are part of this reform, that you are part of what is going on, and this is a make or break thing. If we make it, I think we will be able to show that the world and our people that we can work together, that we could join hands and ensure that there is a future for our young people. But it's also possible that we could say we give up and we go our separate ways. I'll just show a little. It's called 10 moves, and 10 is really an acronym for the entire nation moves. As you very well know, one of the most visible shortages is about classrooms. I've realized that many of our classrooms were built, well, those of you who left the country in your younger years will remember one of the best classrooms, I think, that is adapted to the tropics is the Gabaldon type. The Gabaldon model, and I've gone through all models. I just am amazed at the Gabaldon design, and I think it is just the best environment for learning. But since then, there were many other designs, and some of which have really deteriorated over time, and we've counted around 66,000 classrooms that we need on a yearly basis. We built around 8, maybe 9,000 classrooms a year, and we said we cannot continue just doing this piecemeal. We'll just do it big time. We'll finish up all the classroom shortages, and then we concentrate on the more essential components of learning and education. So essentially, it comes from that big need. We will be building nationwide. We will be putting up in our DepEd website a map of all of those classrooms so that you don't have to contact us. Actually, it's with the help of OSAID and the EBEIS data bank that we're doing. In the next few months, you should be able to access and look at specific schools. We have 45,000 schools, so Dr. Liquanan's 2,000 plus problems is really not much. But I think it's critical that we engage you And this is not about a one-time engagement. We want you to look at not only classrooms that are built, we want you to make sure that the quality of the classes there continue to improve, and we will come up with a system whereby that direct monitoring can also happen. Maybe I will go through this. Essentially, the campaign is very simple. We don't want to reach out to the rich and the famous, because I don't think in history, while they did much, I don't think their contribution is sustainable unless we're able to do this mass-based. So the math is simple. If we need 66, if we want to build, these are all from the private group. They committed to build 10,000 classrooms at around 600,000 on average, 1,000 pesos per classroom, 7 by 9. That comes to around 6 billion pesos. So, since we do not want to tap the rich and the famous, we want to tap ordinary Filipinos, we did the math. Sa Pilipinas, 10 piso kada araw, 10 buwan, makakagawa tayo ng 10,000 silid-aralan. Pagka pumunta tayo sa Australia, pabaguhin natin yon. $10, 10 months, 10,000 school classrooms, school buildings. What we want is to engage 2 million Filipinos. To actually engage 2 million Filipinos, to be able to say, the time, the kairos, the time for you to say and criticize and talk about what is not working right in the Philippines is past. This is the time for you to invest. And the investment we're asking is just 10 pesos, for you $10. 1 month. $3 a day. That's all, and we don't want more than that. Well, I say that. If you give us more, that's fine. But more than the money, we want individuals to sign up, commit, and say, we're with you on this. Our target is actually to engage 2 million Filipinos. Sign and say, I am committed, and I will monitor this for the next 10 months, and I will be interested, I will look at where education is going, and I will make sure that I give my share, and it's $10 a month. I don't know, and that's actually the challenge we would ask the embassy, but all of you Filipinos to work with in your networks. You could do your own little parties and be our champions. If you can talk about this, because this is your own investment, your own work. It's not government work. We will create a system whereby the embassy can identify a bank account that will make that transparent but also convenient in terms of the donations. And we'll work out something, but we would like to engage you. I don't know, is it possible to engage 50,000 Filipinos in Australia? You tell me whether that's dreaming too big or that's easy enough. But again, this is not about money. This is about individual Filipinos who will say, I will invest and I'll give my share. I won't talk much. I'll show you three 30-minute seconders that hopefully will capture what we desire for this campaign. By the way, in different areas in the world, there are we have champions. In the U.S., our champion is the Apple, the app, who will do his campaign among Filipinos in the U.S. also. It's called 10 Moves. technically you make 10 moves every month. Some people do it in 1 move, others in 3 moves. So we ask you, what's your move?
10 moves, checkmate, 4 moves. 1 move. Patawad din. Okay. Pilit, walang tip sa doon, di ba? Okay.
Ito ay 10 piso. Ito ang tatapos sa kahirapan. Ang tutupad sa mga pangarap. Ang wawakas sa kamangmangan. Dahil ang 10 piso, 10,000 silid-aralan ang kayang ipatayo. Today, the entire nation moves to build 10,000 classrooms. Join the movement at 10moves.org. Ano kayang kapalaran nila? Ang maging class president? Ang maging class clown? O ang mapabilang sa graduating class?
Teka muna, graduate kaya tayo? Kapag ulo? Oo!
Sa 10 piso mo nakataya kung makakatapos sila o hindi. Join the entire nation in building 10,000 classrooms. 10 moves, 10,000 silid-aralan, 10 piso lang.
So, we'd like to engage you. We'd like to ask you to make your move, and maybe you could widen this not only to Filipinos, but maybe to the friends of Filipinos in Australia. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Secretary Luistro. And now that we have the information on the 10 Moves initiative, I enjoin the members of the Filipino community in New South Wales and the rest of Australia to support this. And thank you also very much, brother, for your message on being one. Because as I have been reiterating in my discussions, tingnan mo yan, nakangiti. In my discussions with the Filipino community, we can certainly do much more and certainly achieve more by being one. Before we open the floor to questions, I would just like to inform the Secretary that even before you came, there's already one Philcom leader and group who pledged to support this initiative. And although we convened this in quite short notice, but they called up right away, and we would like to invite her to come forward to present the pledge to the Secretary may I call on Miss Rebecca Hansen, who came all the way from Wollongong, President of the Australian Philippine Association Illawarra Incorporated, to present the check pledge to Secretary Armin Luistro. And I hope this is just the beginning, and this will inspire and move the rest to do the same in the months ahead. So, Ms. Hansen, please, and the Secretary.
Quick response naman ito.
Yes. Oh, that's how quick we are, di ba? Di ba? Oh, ba't ang hina naman?
First move.
Thank you. Because we are going to approach individually our members. This is from the association, but we are approaching each member to
make the move.
Yes. But I think it will be just one big move.
Together.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So now we would like to open the floor to questions. Raymond would be around with a microphone. Kindly introduce yourself and your association, and please keep your questions brief, and you may wish to indicate to whom you will ask the question. So the first hand raised is Jules Sanchez. Yes.
Thank you, and the feedback. Anyway, I'll take the voice. Okay, I would like to make welcome to the forum representatives from the government, and I just got back from the Philippines after how many weeks? 7 weeks. 7 weeks of trip. And I realized, talking to the 3 people who are here now, that the Philippines has really suffered as far as the standard of education, because what happened was there's a report that the Philippines is the last 10 percentile as far as standards is concerned. I don't know whether you're aware of that survey. The AIM had something to do with it. AIM. But anyway, I think I have the report, newspaper. So really just that behooves the fact that every overseas Filipinos would like to really share a bit as far as the project of the Honorable Secretary of Education. Just the question here is that the qualification of the costings of the classrooms. As you know, I suffered when I was there with from 3 typhoons, and as you go, you have lots of classrooms that have been destroyed by the typhoons as well. Now, as far as the cost is concerned, there has been a question on if the government builds it, it costs so much, but it comes from another sector, a cooperative or whatever, it costs that less much.
Lesser cost.
So from what sort of costings are you looking at to build that 10,000? I think the Secretary, Director takes Secretary. Thank you.
That's why we're averaging it at 600,000 per classroom, 7 by 9. We're a little careful about these comparisons about costing, because those of you who are more familiar with construction know that unless you compare apples for apples, one can say I can build a classroom for 300, and I tell you I've seen a classroom for 300 that's not good enough for a pigsty. And I said it's not about costing. At the end of the day, we want classrooms that are that fit the specifications of an ideal learning environment for students. And well, you know also that the difference between our regions. and the regions that are very far-flung, there are mobilization costs that you'd have to put into it. But in general, if the costs for a 7x9 with ceiling, 2 doors, blackboard, all in, if it's between 550,000 to 650,000, one story, I think that's very reasonable. When you start building up, that goes all the way to $1 million per classroom because the foundation goes. But the good thing with 10 moves is this is all private sector led. It's not even DepEd led. The classrooms are built by the private sector. And as soon as the money comes, the classroom is built immediately. So even as we speak, we only launched this last week. There are 400 classrooms that are ongoing now and are being turned over because the private sector group is really led by the League of Corporate Foundations, and they don't wait for the money to come, for the 6 billion to come. Whenever they have 500,000, then they bid out a classroom. They're also, if you look at the website, you'll find the 40 priority areas where there are all of these beneficiaries of the conditional cash transfer, which is really targeting the poorest Filipinos, the lowest quintile of the population. So you'll be happy to note that this is private sector led, private sector built, and private sector monitored, and the government is partnering with them because we know this is the best way of making sure that a project like this is run very efficiently.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Yes, the next question. May I just remind everyone to please keep their comments and questions brief. Thank you.
Bob Alipalo from North Shore Filipino Association in Sydney. Now, this is a question in regard to succession planning more than anything else. And we are under the impression that it being under the tutelage of the private sector, what is the guarantee that this program will be carried on into its full matured project, that you can achieve the goal, and what will happen after that?
If you notice, this is a project, it's called 10 Moves, and it is a definite end, period. We don't intend this to go forever, on and on and on and on and on, because we want to solve the classroom problem in 1 or 2 years. So if you look at this project, this started October 10 officially, 2011. It will end October 10, 2012. So it's both Kairos and Chronos. And if this works, what we're really trying out is a system, global, where individual Filipinos can participate wherever they are. And what actually we're doing is perfecting a system. In this case, monitoring, having a website, because what we want is, after this project, then we will identify others that are more immediate and very urgent. And so if there's a big typhoon, we can say the entire nation moves, wherever you are, in the 80 countries all over the globe, and we'll say, we'll do this in 3 days, and we'll solve the Philippine problem in 3 days. That's actually the concept behind 10 Moves. And so, that's why the timing is critical. Because after this, what we want is to be able to engage others in many other needs of the country.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Yes, at the back, please. Is that Bob? Yes.
Bobby Lastica from Bicol Link. Salamat po at na-target ninyo yung Bicol region, the priority 1 and 2. Actually, I'm going home to help my cousins there who are really crying for help dahil yung classrooms nila, sometimes they held the schools under the sun. So Ang Bicol Ping po, meron kaming program na Adapt the School. But our concentration is to reach out to far-flung areas in computerization so at least they can be connected to the international world. Yung tanong ko lang po dito, is this part of the PPP program? In as much as the PPP program had already been dismissed.
This is one segment of the PPP. It's not been dismissed. In fact, under the 2012 budget for at least DepEd, we have around, we're projecting to build 30,000 classrooms via a multi-year obligation, committing 5 billion in the budget every year, beginning in the 2012 budget. So at least 30,000 classrooms. So if you notice in our shortage, the 10,000 is actually like the last leg that will complete all the shortages in classrooms, so that on a yearly basis we will just be catching up with the yearly shortages rather than the backlog of the past years.
Just a follow-up question. In Australia, when the economy was really pragmatic, the government invested in education revolution. Spent money on educational buildings so that the money will circulate and stimulate the economy. I understand that the President is also contemplating on doing the same stimulus in the Philippines. Why can't he not do something as far as the classrooms are concerned?
Well, as I mentioned, there's 5 billion on a yearly multi-year obligation, and that's actually 30,000. That does not include the regular school building program. That's why the government, 2012, for 1 year alone, the infusion is for 45,000 classrooms. If you add the 10,000 of private sector, that should go up to 55. And then we're looking at the counterpart funding with LGUs to complete the 66. On a yearly basis for the past decades, the most that the Philippine government has built is 8,000 classrooms. So you'll see the big jump from 8,000 to 66 with private sector initiative.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Manny. Manny Diaz.
Manny Diel, GMA news correspondent in Sydney and also Philippine Community Herald newspaper. I've got two questions. The first question is, in any undertaking, there's always the cost of administration. Like we know that we're going to donate $100, but how much of that $100 will go into the actual classroom, and how much will it go into the administration of this project? And the second question is, I've noted that if we want to pledge, then we can either do a telegraphic transfer or something like that. Now, I think we have to look into the cost of doing this on a monthly basis. We know that if you send money to the Philippines, it will cost you $8 to send it through a money transfer. So how do you address that cost of doing this project? Because I'm sure if you do it on the bank, it will cost you more. So if $10, how much would that be the cost, the bank fees?
If you do it in one move and you do it today, zero cost. Because you could give the envelope like this. No, but the good thing with the 10 Moves project is, since that is piggybacking on the League of Corporate Foundations, and as one of several projects that they're doing, there is zero administrative fees that are being charged. And in fact, but also in terms of the construction of the classrooms, they're looking at asking NGOs who enjoy tax credits. So this is by far the cheapest way. We can't even do that in government, because for classrooms, for us, we have to have an administrative fee, and when we bid it out, there is a 12% tax now. So they're looking at different ways of doing it, including sweat equity. But in terms of the actual logistics on how to save on this, I don't have an answer for you in Australia, because we'll have to work with the embassy, and we'll work on a system that is transparent but also convenient, but also will cut the costs in terms of this daily remittance. So, but we will rely on the embassy to work with your associations.
Money, we were actually discussing earlier, because I was raising that about the cost of the remittance, and the most easy facility to also facilitate your sending the money. So we will try to work out the system, and then once we have the information, we will inform all of you. Okay? Yes, Sen Amores.
Good afternoon. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Ako po si Sen Amores. Ako ang presidente ng Alliance of Philippine Community Organizations. Okay, this is my reaction to regarding the infrastructure that you would like to put up. Okay, that's the basic, I believe that is the basic responsibility of the government, to provide to its citizens what the basic needs that need to be addressed. I'm just wondering, what is the percentage of the allocation to education in comparison to the other services that the government has made?
As far as appropriations, annual appropriations?
In the Philippines, education continues to be the biggest in the budget, when you look at the national budget, after debt payment. So we have around 12%. And while it is true that government must do everything, I'm not sure in reality whether we can rely on that. But I am sure you know very well that at this stage in the administration of President Aquino, the real difficulty is not lack of will to do that. It's really that there are many competing needs that also are urgent. So if you look at health, for example, and the program of the President to universalize health care, that is another major area of concern, and putting up health units. So without going into details, I wish to assure you that the government is putting in the investment. And in fact, when I shared about the 45,000 classrooms, and you do a computation there in terms of what investments the government is willing to do, it's not as though the government is saying, let the private sector do it. In fact, the 10,000 classrooms that the private sector, we're targeting for the private sector, is really around 1/5, 1/6 of what we're targeting for this coming year. So it's really more looking at the shortages of the past decades, I'd say, and we're just trying to catch up with that, and we're engaging the private citizens to help us so that we could move in terms of responding to those needs.
Okay, thank you. We will take 2 more questions before we end. Alric, yes.
Alric Bulseco po from Ateneo Alumni. With your plan of building 10,000 schools, is it there classrooms? Isn't there an existing shortage of teachers at the moment? So there could be a fear of you having empty buildings. For instance, like sa Ateneo de Davao, I believe the ratio is 40 students to 1 teacher because there's a lack of teachers. So you might end up with a white elephant or something.
Well, I did not present to you the program to hire teachers because even if I did, that really is not your concern. But yes, that is certainly, there are other parts of the big puzzle. Also the programs for toilets and sanitation facilities, textbooks, but I will not bother you with that. The 10 moves is concentrating on one part of the big puzzle, so that we can join hands and solve that part. No? And we're going to the other sectors to help us with the other segments. So, but yes, I wish to assure you that this is a well-coordinated, and no, we will not have white elephants. We have enough of that already.
Okay, the last question, yes, RC Reyes. Use the microphone, please.
Yeah, fundraising is an activity, here where I live, is some kind of activities. It doesn't stop. We do fundraising in every move, in every region. And if you're gonna ask me, I think I would give my money easily to what you're presenting to me. Because to me, giving alms will not solve poverty, education will. So that's I just want to share to you guys. Okay. And as a matter, no, I just want to share my ideas. And as a pledge, being a pledging director of a pledging theater company, community theater, I would like to pledge a production once a year to give to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, RC. Okay, and since RC didn't ask a question, we will have one last question. Yes, Attorney Lolly Farmer. Yes.
Thank you. First, I must apologize for being late.
We understand.
That's not my usual case. I had in mind 7 p.m. when it was in fact 6 p.m. Right. I read the material sent by the consulate. 10 moves. 10 pesos, 10 months. I went to the internet. It's a project of Ayala Foundation. Now, my question is, how much of the money will go to Ayala Foundation and how much will go to the classroom? That's one. My next one is, sorry, because I really read it. My next one is, billions will be collected because it's global, diasporic. Now, would it not be appropriate if the interest or the money collected be placed in a separate account, not that of Ayala, so that the interest will be used for the purpose? So, those are the questions.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, it's not Ayala, it's the League of Corporate Foundations. And Ayala Foundation is actually spending for the Secretariat. And that's why my response earlier was, there are no administrative fees, because it's really piggybacking on the League of Corporate Foundations. There is a separate trust fund for this, but for Australia, there will be another announcement that will be specific for Australia, because what you find in the website does not yet cover the world. That is really more for the Philippines. We're going around the embassies and asking them to set up that kind of facility. So I'd like to assure you that Ayala is here as a partner. There are no administrative fees that they will be charging. In fact, they are actually subsidizing the Secretariat.
So before we end the forum, we would also like to inform the Secretary that actually there are many associations and groups who are already working on or have done projects which touched on education. So I think Bobby Alipalo mentioned the work of Bicol Incorporated. I'm sorry, Bobby Lastica. Sorry, I got mixed up with the both of you. The president is here, Alice Posada of Bicol Inc. Brother, we will give you a write-up actually on what they have been doing in terms of education-related programs. And is Miss Evelyn Bede of Philippine Cordillerans. Can we give her the microphone, please, Raymond, to just briefly inform the Secretary also about their education-related projects?
I'm Evelyn Bede, and I come from the Cordillera region. And I'm the president since 2006 to 2011 to 2013. We have been having fundraising. That's where we get the money. And those funds mainly goes to the Cordillera region. And I have done a write-up which I've given to the consul last night in regards to public schools. Since 2007, we had probably 11 projects, which mainly, water tanks, because in the school, it's very hard to get water for the children. And that's what they want, so we have given the priority on water tanks. We also have given daycare center, which some of the daycare centers need blackboards, mini libraries, so we gave it to them. Also in Sagada, Mountain Province, we had completed 3 classrooms. This is high school, and it's all completed now. But the funds that we send to them, if we send $3,000, that is spent, $3,000. No administration fees, all the counterpart is at the end. So when we fundraise $3,000, we send $3,000, there's no administration fees. So I think the question that they were asking a while ago is because of administration. When you have $3,000 here, you send it back home, maybe that $3,000 will not go to that project. That's why we are doing this directly to the schools. Not only we do for public schools, we also do for hospitals and other projects. Like, for example, we have built a medical center in Ifugao, which we bought the land, but we had a counterpart of the government to build the building. So those are some of the projects we have done for the last 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. And may I also call on Manny Castillo, please, they also have... Yes.
Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Manny Castillo from the Philippine Australian Sports and Culture Inc. We are the annual organizer of the Philippine Sydney Fiesta Cultura, where we fundraise throughout the years since 1989. From 1990, we have started our educational foundation in the Philippines. And up to now, it's continuous. We specialize on the technical education through the Technological University of the Philippines, where we sponsor engineering students. Since that time, every year we have about 5-6 students selected by the university. And through that, they go to TISDA. On other parts of the educational system, we also have been donating several, over 10,000 textbooks and non-fictions and other educational materials for various sectors in the Philippines. On top of that, 3 years ago, we started sending medical and dental equipment to various LGUs, universities, and various schools. And that is also through the cooperation of the Sydney Dental Hospital. So overall, we have about 30 dental chairs, about 50 sterilizing units, 10 about X-ray machines. In fact, because the machines are too modern, PGH and San Lazaro has rejected them. because they said it cost them money to, they got no budget to operate it, to update it.
Okay.
So that is our overall for the last 20 years.
Okay, thank you very much, Manny. Okay, we have to conclude the session because we don't have time, but you will get some chance of interaction after this. So if there's any comment, additions, questions you wish to raise, then the Secretary and the rest of the members of the delegation will be around. So we have prepared a simple reception after this, but before we do that, we have requested the Secretary and the members of the delegation to oblige us with a photo opportunity, and so we will be arranging here. We will do it systematically, okay? So the last two rows at the back will come first to do the photo op, and after that, please, can you take your seats first? Okay, can you take your seats first? After that, once you have done the photo opportunity, you are invited to go to where the reception, the merienda is being served. Okay? Lotus was saying something.
So we'd like to take this occasion.
The Secretary, hold on please. The Secretary.
Together with go forward. Following Philippine tradition, we're bringing a very small pasalubong to our hard-working embassy team and consul. So, but for this, for the whole team, because we feel that it is part of our ways of giving our support to those who are our big help for the promotion of what the country is and where we want to bring it. So maraming salamat po mula sa amin sa education sector.
Okay, we are just fixing here. Meanwhile, can the last two rows already stand at the back? Stand at the back. The next two rows, please. Okay, can I just have everyone's attention, please? Can I have everyone's attention, please? While we are forming ourselves here, while we were discussing, Ray has a very important comment to make. So, okay, Ray, you can Ray Manoto. Okay.
I was raising my hand on GNTV, so with your indulgence, my name is Ray Manoto. I'm the president of the South Park Movement of Campbelltown. I'm also the marketing partner of Ayala Land and also a representative of Bank of Philippine Islands. And there was an allegation about Ayala Foundation. There is no truth to that because as a foundation, it's a non-profit entity. And what we could offer to the 10 moves is we will waive the remittances, the remittance fee of every remittances you make to the 10 moves. If you do it through Bank of Philippine Islands, we will waive the remittance fee of $8. Just contact me. Thank you very much.